A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm James Carberry.
And I'm Jonathan Green.
Let's get into the show. Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. We are here today with Josh Miller. He is the Director of Gen Z Studies at XYZ University. He's also the CEO of Deciding Edge. Josh, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic. Josh, so you and I met, I think it was a couple months ago. You had seen our Gary V. Wannabe video on LinkedIn and you reached out, and I was just incredibly impressed with the work that you've done. You're 16 years old. And you're doing a lot of research around Gen Z and how Gen Z is going to impact business today and moving forward. From what I understand, you're working with a lot of big brands. I had the CMO of Red Wings comment on one of my LinkedIn status updates saying that he has worked with you and loves the work that you've done with them. I saw somewhere else that you're doing stuff with the Minnesota Vikings. So just incredibly impressed by your hustle and the work that you're doing. But I would love, in your own words, to just kind of give a little bit of context around how you spend your days, both with XYZ University and your own company, Deciding Edge.
Yes, absolutely. Well, James, thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to be here and to share some perspective. So thank you for teaming me up. I am a 16-year-old student, thought leader, and entrepreneur on the topic of Generation Z and how it relates to the economy, the workforce, the marketplace, etc. So when I was 13 years old, I founded a company called Deciding Edge. And my mission was to help bring my perspective as a young person, as a teenager, as a Gen Zer into the economy for marketing, in human resources purposes. Earlier this year, or last year rather, I crossed paths with Sarah Sladek, the CEO of XYZ University, and she's a world-renowned author and speaker and really doing some incredible work on generations and how organizations can use our research to their advantage. So I joined the XYZ University team as their Director of Gen Z Studies. And my first project to kick off, to launch my announcement that joining the team, is we put together a 17-page white paper, the whole team, about Gen Z and what we're going to mean for the future of work and what we're going to mean for the future of the world as we know it today. We surveyed over 1,800 Gen Zers from all over the world, and we got some really, really fascinating insights into what this next generation is going to mean for the future. And so it's really been a fun ride for me so far. I've been able to travel and speak at some great organizations, work with some great brands, as you mentioned. And, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm excited to be able to offer my perspective.
I love it. So I want to dive in a little bit to how you went about getting those 1,800 Gen Zers involved in this study. You mentioned that you partnered with some educational institutions. Talk to us a little bit about how you got a diverse group of folks to be a part of the study.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we were able to partner with a few different organizations that were able to put the survey out on our behalf, and it was a lot of grassroots marketing as well. So how do we reach out to the common Gen Zer, and how do we reach out to the average Gen Zer that's going to be able to provide us with the most accurate, relevant, and important insights in what this next generation is going to mean?
So by partnering with those organizations, you were able to get a diverse data set, so to speak. So I want to now talk about why does this matter? You've obviously gone through the study. Why do the listeners listening to this show, they're in a B2B context? What do you think the impact of the studies or the study that you guys just finished? Why do you think the person listening to this show needs to hear it?
Absolutely. So Gen Z at a glance. First, I'm going to talk about some of the age parameters of this generation. So it's interesting because as we keep moving forward, generations are going to keep getting shorter and shorter simply due to more events happening and more technologies really making generations more succinct. I'm sure a lot of the people listening have heard a generational speaker about millennials, this, and this, but the fact is that Gen Z is coming up next. How we're defining who Gen Z is, it's interesting that we're defining it because generations are marked by events, not dates. Okay. And so if I was born in 2001, James, what is the biggest event that happened that year?
Yeah, the 9/11 for sure.
9/11, exactly. And so that's the event that's going to shape me and my generation's formative years. So how we're defining it is anybody born from 1996 to 2009. And in other words, if 9/11 is history to you, then you're a part of this generation. The reason that's important, we make up 25% of the U.S. population. We wield an annual buying power of almost $50 billion, which at this point in the game sounds kind of low, but that's not taking into account that we've yet to really enter the workforce and yet to really make our presence known. So anybody listening on the podcast today, I give you props because you're gearing up for the future and gearing up for what's to come soon. We're going to make up 36% of the global workforce by 2025, and we are the most diverse generation in U.S. history. We are the last generation here in the United States where whites are going to be the majority. And it's interesting how that's going to shape Gen Z and how we really have developed some of these traits that allow us to coexist with other people just because we've been so exposed to it.
Interesting. I love that data, and it's really fascinating. This is the first time that I'm hearing this, a lot of this myself. So Josh, you mentioned offline that there were 4 themes that you picked up on after doing this study. And the first one that you mentioned was that the Gen Zers, they love to compete. Can you unpack that for us a bit?
Absolutely. And we're seeing that play out right now. We're all watching the Olympics over in South Korea. We just had the Super Bowl here in my home state of Minnesota. And it's really fascinating to see how Gen Z has been raised. We've really been raised to compete in school and sports and in life in general. We obsess over our GPAs, our ACT and SAT scores, and our class rank. And we carry the mindset that we're not necessarily at school to learn, but rather to get good grades. And it's that sort of mindset it's all about the numbers and the data and the competition that's going to drive Gen Z. And we're going to see some of those trends be continued once we enter the workforce and look for jobs because our salary is going to be so important to us. And in our study, we asked a question about what is most important to us when looking for a job, and the top answer was money. The simple reason being is because we crave stability, growing up in this era. And it's really fascinating to see how our view on life and how our view in sports, etc., is differing from other generations just because of the environment that we have grown up in.
I love it. All right. The second theme that you found was that Gen Zers love to create. Talk to us about this one.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk about the 3 biggest social media networks for Gen Z. Let's talk about Instagram, YouTube, and Snapchat. The one thing that they all have in common is that they own no content. And all the content is really created by Gen Z. It's created by their users. And that's what attracts Gen Z. We love being able to not only consume content, but create it. And I know there's so many different vlogs and things out there that are allowing Gen Zers the ability to make our voices heard. And that's really, really attractive to us.
And so as an employer, as someone that will in the next few years be hiring Gen Z talent, how do you think that shapes, what that looks like?
Absolutely. I think the big thing there is that you want to give us an opportunity to create and give us an opportunity to let us show you what we can do. And I think that even spans beyond generations and just give kids a chance, give people a chance to show what they can do, and you're going to be very pleasantly surprised.
Got it. This third theme, Josh, you mentioned is Gen Zers have this ability to coexist. Talk to us about this one.
Yes. Absolutely. So as I said a little bit earlier, Gen Z is the most diverse generation in American history. Our entire lifetimes up to this point has been shaped by social movements on all different spectrums, and we're so exposed more than any other generation to the current issues of today because we have widespread access to it. So, for example, we'll talk about gay marriage. Gay marriage for Gen Z, it's not an issue. It's the norm. It's what it is. And it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just what it is. And we're generally going to be very accepting of those differences. And you see some of these clashing social movements of our time. You can talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. You can talk about Donald Trump's rise, growing up as a teenager in Donald Trump's America, and how that's really going to affect the way that we live.
All right. So in light of kind of I don't know, I'm not even going to go there because I don't want to get too political here, but I'll kind of move to this next, this fourth and final theme that we're going to talk about here, Josh, which is Gen Zs have a desire to connect. Talk to us about this one.
Yes, absolutely. So this is a really, really big one for my generation, obviously, but I want to make my opinion heard on this topic. And there's a reason that Gen Zers connect is only 1/4 of the main themes that we got. And that's because technology is only a part of Gen Z. There are some names that have been thrown around for my generation. For example, iGen, and all these other different names that just are somewhat degrading to Gen Z. And I can speak as a Gen Zer that we are more than technology. We're more than our phones. And that's something that a lot of companies, a lot of institutions need to understand, that technology is a good part of the experience. It's important, but it's important to have that face-to-face communication in there as well. And that's another one of the biggest insights that we got out of our most recent white paper, is that Gen Z, our preferred way to communicate is face-to-face, with text coming in second. And it just shows that we use our entertainment and our technology primarily as an entertainment platform. And when we want real effective communication, that's when we're going to end up turning to face-to-face. So that's a very common misconception about my generation, is that we crave human face-to-face connection.
That is very interesting. Another thing that you mentioned offline, it has to do with how Gen Zers learn. You said that 55% learn best by doing, 38% by watching, and only 7% by listening. Can you talk to us about that a bit more and what that means?
Right. I think that number is fascinating, and it shows that we need to rethink the way that we're approaching onboarding sessions, rethink the way that we're approaching conferences and events, and rethink the way that we're approaching education as we know it today. So often we're sitting in lecture halls, and it's really just not doing a ton for us. And these institutions and these companies and these schools are missing really, really great opportunities to teach us by doing interactive activities and by really allowing us to get our hands dirty. And that's really what we crave, because that's what we've been around our entire lives, always being on our phones and really being able to understand the world around us.
I love it. And so, Josh, there's obviously, an enormous amount of insights that you can pull from this. Where can folks listening to this interview find the entire white paper that has all the data that we're talking about today?
Yep. So where you can find the white paper is on www.xyzuniversity.com and on the resources page. And it's titled Gen Z, Ready or Not, Gen Z is Here. And we are very excited about this latest research and how we're going to be able to impact some industries and some companies with it. So it's been a lot of fun so far for everyone involved, and we're really feeling like we're making a difference.
Josh, you and I are actually about to launch a podcast where we're partnering with you and XYZ University. Can you talk to listeners of this show about the podcast that we're going to be launching and what they can expect to hear when that show goes live? Absolutely. So we are titling it the Gen Z podcast. And what we're going to be talking about is how brands and the new trends about Gen Z and what that means for everything, more or less. So how the arrival of Gen Z
and how the coming of age of Gen Z, what that's going to mean for the world as we know it today. And so we're going to have on guests of all different backgrounds and industries, and it's going to be really a lot of fun to see. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see where it's going to go, and we're hoping that we can create some real value on it as well. So I hope to see a lot of you listening in, and it's great. So I'm excited to see what happens. And James and Sweetfish, thank you guys for helping us get it off the ground, and we really, really appreciate that.
I love what you're doing. I love your hustle and your drive, and the fact that you're 16 and have accomplished more at 16 than I have at twice your age is saying something. So I'm really excited to be locked in and arm in arm with you and help you get that into the world, because I think it's going to help a whole lot of folks. So Josh, if there's somebody listening to this and they want to stay connected with you, they want to learn more about XYZ University, obviously we want them to subscribe to your podcast as soon as it goes live. But what are some other ways that they can stay connected with you?
Yes, absolutely. Find me on LinkedIn. Find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @_JMiller1231. And so feel free to connect with me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat for all you folks that are on it. And really go on XYZUniversity.com, my speaker page, and there should be ways to get in contact with me. It should not be hard to get in contact. But yes, feel free to connect on LinkedIn, and I'm looking forward to launching conversations with all of you.
Awesome, Josh. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been great, man.
Yes, thank you. We'll be in touch.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.